Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a strategy video for the 2021 WGC Match Play event. Now, before we actually get in the video, I want to remind you guys there are timestamps in the description below. Also on YouTube, the progress bar is cut up into segments. If you hover over it, it'll tell you what those segments are. Now, this strategy video is going to be slightly different than previous strategy videos. I said the very same thing in the preview video because this is a match play event. There are some things that I cover in the stroke play events that just aren't relevant in this one. Those include tee time pairings. We won't be talking about tee time pairings because it's just, there's no purpose to it. One golfer is going to be playing another golfer on the exact same hole, and they're going to continue playing the same holes until there's a winner. So there's no real benefit to knowing tee time pairings because it's mano-y-mano. It's not a golfer against the rest of the field. So we won't be talking about tee time pairings. Also, we won't be talking about statement game picks because there weren't any statement games or any selections to make. I didn't see any contests. I forgot to check in with statement games to see if they were going to provide. I'm running a little bit behind, so I just want to get this out as quick as possible. If there are actual selections to be made, I'll provide them. I'll tweet them out. But still, I recommend go ahead and check in with statement games. They have more contests for different sports. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun way to play fantasy sports. And plus, you get more coins. Coins go towards gift cards. You don't have to put any money into it. So it's a free way to play to get, and then you can get rewarded. So it's great. What we are actually going to be talking about, I'm still going to be going over the course breakdown, although it's going to be a lot quicker than usual. It's just trying to find, a slight advantage. That's basically what going over the course really does. And of course, we'll talk more about it when we get there. We'll also be looking at strokes gain stats. So I'll actually be going over the strokes gain buckets this week. And I'll also be talking about the sweet spot score because most of this video is going to be going over an optimizer. I'm going to be showing you the optimizer that I was giving away in the preview video. If you tried to get the preview video and I have not reached out to you yet, it's because you didn't follow all of the steps. But I'll go ahead and just tell you right now, there isn't much time left before lineup lock. Obviously, we still have half a day left, but still, since we're so close, this is all you have to do. You have to be subscribed to me on YouTube. You have to like this video. Leave a comment. I don't care what it is. Your favorite play, the golfer you think is going to win. If you want to compliment me, that's awesome. You don't have to, but just anything. You could just say a random word. Make me laugh. It does not matter. And if your email address is not linked to your YouTube, so if I go to your YouTube channel and the About Me section doesn't have your email address, I can't contact you. For email, you have to contact me. So what you'll need to do is reach out to me at SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com. Just let me know you're interested in the optimizer and I'll send it your way. So those were the only steps. If you're on Twitter, you don't necessarily have to do those steps. You can just like my tweet and then retweet it, and I'll reach out to you looking for your email address. So if you don't want to do all of that on YouTube, you can certainly do it on Twitter, but I highly recommend just doing it on YouTube. Helps me out, helps me get to other people, and it's much, much, much appreciated. So I'll say this. Last thing that I want to talk about is, again, we're going to be using the optimizer extensively throughout this video, and also looking at brackets, because there is a right way to build lineups. There is a wrong way to build lineups. And if you're building wrong lineups, like I'm going to show you how you build wrong lineups, you'll be dead. Like your lineups will be dead. You won't win any money because you will not be building them optimally. So definitely pay attention. That's going to be the majority of this video, is really talking about conviction plays, strategies, watching the optimizer go to work, all that good stuff. So again, timestamps are in the description below. Let's go ahead and get into this thing. So we're going to start with the course breakdown. I'm just going to advise you guys to pause the video if you want to read the description of each hole. I'm not going to go over that. I'm just going to tell you what I learned by doing this course breakdown. it seems to favor a draw slightly. There's actually just one more hole where a draw matters more than a fade. And one of the fade holes is kind of here at the bottom. Some of these golfers might not actually get to the 16th hole. The match might already be over before that, so we could actually take one fade hole away. And to kind of validate that a little bit, let me show you the results of every single year. So in 2019, Kevin Kisner won this tournament. He draws the golf ball. Bubba Watson's a left-hander that loves to hit huge swooping cuts. Obviously, you flip that over to a right-hand golfer, that's a draw. And that's what I mean by draw and fades. It's based off of right-handed golfers. Now, DJ in 2017, he hits a fade, but Day, McIlroy, and Day, once again, 2016, 2015, 2014, they all hit draws. Matt Kuchar hits a fade. So obviously, it favors draws a little bit more than fades. Now, I'm not telling you to go ahead and load up on all draw golfers because that's just unrealistic. That's not a good way to build lineups. That's not a good way to actually look at DFS golf at all for any statistic. But if you do have kind of a tiebreaker that you need to decide, let's say it's between Rory McIlroy and Jon Rahm, perhaps you choose McIlroy because he hits a draw over Rahm who hits a fade. They're priced very similar, very close to each other. That is one way you can make a tiebreaker, or could be a lesser golfer. Can't think of anything off the top of my head, but you get the idea. From here, what I want to do is I want to talk about the SweetSpot score. So I have the rankings here. It's ranked 1 to 20. We'll talk about that slightly. I want to let you know what that rank is based off of. I mean, it's based off of a score over here all the way at the end of the spreadsheet, and that score derives from these statistics right here. So I'm talking about everything from OWGR over. You can see I'm trying to make numbers as close to 100 as possible for the favorites. So DJ is number 1 ranked in the world, so he gets 99.67 points. So it's using these stats. Official World Golf Ranking, POA average. This goes from 2013 all the way into recent times. So that's their average finishing position, again, in a score, like a formula that I put it in. Top 10 POA percentage, average Pete Dye, top 10 Pete Dye percentage, bogey avoidance, birdie or better, DK average, and scoring average. So that is what my metric consists of. And this is what the optimizer looks at when it tries to pick golfers. So this is the metric that you're going to see on the optimizer, just to let you guys know. Now, just talking about 1 through 20, I just want to make some important discoveries. Patrick Cantlay, $9,800. You can see 4 golfers underneath him priced more, actually 5 golfers underneath him priced more than he is. He's the second ranked golfer in my SweetSpot model. I do like Patrick Cantlay. I wasn't really high on him to begin with, just by looking at the bracket, but perhaps now I play a little bit more of him. I won't mind playing a little bit more of him. But it's interesting to note. Another interesting thing to note is the fact that JT is the second priced guy, and he's actually the 6th ranked golfer in this model. So, those are some things obviously very interesting. Xander Schauffele down here at $10,000. I don't know, I didn't really look closely into what stats are, holding him down. I'm guessing it's probably Pete Dye. But you can see Sergio Garcia is ahead of him, Tony Finau, Joaquin Niemann, Paul Casey, Webb Simpson. He's just barely ahead of Tommy Fleetwood, who is above Daniel Berger, Patrick Reed, and Jordan Spieth. Actually, all these guys, Day and also Tyrrell Hatton. So those are kind of some notable things to see. It doesn't really sway my opinion. I'm not really... when I see Fleetwood above him, I don't really care that much. And I'll show you why, because he's not in the strokes gained bucket number that I want a golfer from. I don't really trust him. But it is interesting to see on the model, he ranks pretty high. And obviously seeing some of these high price guys a little bit down low kind of, makes me caution. I don't know if I really want to play a lot of those guys. So I guess going from here, I want to go into the strokes gained buckets, because combine this with the bucket system we used yesterday, which, I mean, we were only looking at 2 buckets. We were looking at last week and recent form. I'll actually come back to this a little bit later, but yeah, let's just focus on strokes gained. Now, there is only 1 year of match play that I can actually kind of compare this to. I didn't have stats recorded in 2018, and obviously we didn't have a tournament in 2020, so I only have 2019 stats to look at. And I was already kind of messing around with it. But if I look, at, the top 5 and even top 10, primarily I'm just going to be looking at the top 5. This is where you're going to win a GPP, is getting 6 golfers inside the top 5. I want to look, I do this with all of my videos. Here at SweetSpotDFS, I analyze all top 10 finishing positions of every single year at a tournament with all their stats included to try to figure out, what trends, kind of come to fruition, or, what kind of motivations do some golfers have? And a lot of this also comes with the stats. You already know you don't want to select all golfers that have positive putting stats. Like, that would be kind of foolish. Obviously, if someone has a good putting stat, that means they've been putting the ball really well. But it's also, as we all know with strokes gained stats, some things are hidden that you can't see. A good putting stat probably means there's a bad approach or a bad around the green stat right next to it. Likewise, if there's a negative putting stat, it means a lot of golfers are probably flushing their irons perfectly into greens, leaving themselves with short putts that they miss. That's how you get negative strokes gained putting. Very, rarely are these negative strokes gained putting stats coming from 3 putts or 4 putts. I mean, obviously they certainly can, but for the most part, if you see a positive approach stat next to a negative putting stat, it just means that guy's hitting the ball really close to the hole and can't convert for the 1 putt, which doesn't mean they're playing bad. That means they're probably getting pars. So either way, when we look at stats, it is important to know you want to mix. So what I've done is my strokes gained bucket stats are more static, as the other bucket stats or bucket system. I'm sorry, the other buckets within the bucket system are fluid, meaning if more golfers that fit into buckets finish inside the top 10 that normally, and that's probably a bad way to say it. Let's say we have more finishes from our bucket 6 inside the top 10 than we normally see. That might change it from bucket 6 to bucket 5, because it's always going by totals of top 10 finishes. Strokes gained buckets are always static. And let me show you what I mean by that. So strokes gained 1 means everything is positive. So off the tee approach, around the green, and putting, as you can see, everyone in 2019, that's how this looks. And you can also see we really only have 3 golfers out of this, 3 golfers out of 16 made it past the pods that were considered strokes gained bucket 1 golfers. So if it was already we need to hammer down on the strokes gained bucket 1 golfers, maybe this gives you a little bit of caution. One thing to also note is if we're comparing 2019 to this tournament, we need to be looking at the total amount of golfers in each of these buckets. So there's 16 for strokes gained bucket 1 in 2018 or 2019. In 2021, we have a few more. We have 22. So we have 6 more golfers. What this should tell you, and what this tells me, is we're probably going to see someone from this bucket inside the top 5. And maybe we even see 2, just because by volume alone, the odds are heavily in the favor of this. And primarily because these are really good golfers in this bucket. To have all your stats positive means you've been playing pretty well. But still, again, just word of caution, we had 16 in 2019 and only 3 of them got out of the pods. When we look at strokes gained bucket 2, not a lot of golfers in this bucket. There are only 8, and this would be your positive off the tee guys with your positive putting and some negative stat in between. When we look at 2021, we have 11. So 3 more golfers in this bucket, meaning again, we're probably going to see more success than we did in 2019, which actually your winner and 4th place and a 5th place came out of. So 3 guys out of this field, 3 out of 8. It's a pretty good percentage finishing inside the top 5. If we go to our strokes gained bucket 3 golfers, quite a bit more golfers here. In fact, we have 20. And 2 of them finished inside the top 4. 3 of them finished inside the top 5. And if we're looking at this week, we actually have less for strokes gained bucket 3. We are looking at 3, right? Yes. So we have 9 in 2021. In 2019, what did we have? 20. So 11. That's a difference of 11. So we have 11 less golfers in strokes gained bucket 3. But I would argue you can see the price tags here. We have 3 guys 10K and above. If we go to 2019 and we go by salary from here, we have 1 guy that's 10K, a 9K, and a bunch of 8K golfers. So I guess altogether we have what? 6 golfers that are 8K and above. For this year, we have 5 golfers, 8K and above. So perhaps we see 1, maybe we see 2 out of this bucket that finishes inside the top 5 or top 10. So having less numbers, that's going to make a big difference. I don't know how much. Obviously, we saw two guys from this. We had an $8,100 and a $6,200 golfer. I guess just for the hell of it, do we have a 6K guy? Hey, maybe this is why you play Sebastian Munoz or Adam Long. I mean, positive off the tee means they're hitting the ball well off the tee. That plays into match play quite well. Golfers who hit the ball further than you, believe it or not, wear on you over time. It doesn't matter how well you're striking it. If someone has a shorter shot into the green than you, and you're always hitting your approach shot first, the guy who's hitting it further gets a read on you and gets to determine if they need to play safe or play aggressive. It's such a huge advantage to hit the ball further. So these guys here, I wouldn't discount them. Even if they're bad putters, does not matter. I mean, I really like Sergio. It's a great choice. And I guess if we're also comparing it to 2019, 8,100, 8,300 seems like a good, correlation. Strokes gained bucket 4 had 8 golfers in it in 2019, and nobody made it out of the pods. You can see Jordan Spieth leads the pack there. Guess what? Jordan Spieth leads the pack here, but we have a few more strokes gained bucket 4 golfers. We actually have 15. So that's a difference of 7 between the two years. So perhaps, I mean, in 2019, what we saw 0. Maybe we see 1. We might see 1 guy out of this bucket to finish inside the top 5 or top 10. And maybe we even see 2. Just keep that in mind as well. But what this also should tell you is do not select more than 3 guys out of this bucket. At least I would really caution you not to. So just keep that in mind. I think it's a good rule to go by. And then bucket 5 and 6, I mean, we have 4 golfers in bucket 5, 3 golfers in bucket 6. We primarily want to avoid any of these golfers here. I can show you what that looks like in 2019. So if we look at both 4 and 5, 5 and 6, and then we can put them in order as well. You can see Kevin Na, one of 4 golfers in that strokes gained bucket 5, finished in 5th place. So not terrible. But in that bucket 6, 2 guys finished, 9th place, but not good enough to win you a GPP. So primarily want to avoid bucket 6, and primarily want to avoid bucket 5 as well. So that's what I intend on doing. And again, every single week that we do this, those stats pretty much remain consistent. It basically, like I have on the rules that you see here, pick 0 to 1 from 6, 0 to 2 in 5, 0 to 2 in 4, and then 1 of each in 1, 2, and or 3. So that's definitely where I want to start my lineups. And the bucket system is going to, or not the bucket system, the optimizer will actually give you the opportunity to do that. So if you were to go down the strokes gained bucket 4 and put in your presets, I don't want more than 1 strokes gained bucket 6. I don't want more than 2 in strokes gained bucket 5, and I don't want any more than 2 in strokes gained bucket 4. Now, these, I mean, you can change these. And if you set these too strict, the optimizer is not going to like it. It's not going to be able to run for you. So it would be best to kind of keep it a little bit open, but I'm still going to keep this at 1. I do not want to see more than 1 there. And I mean, for me, this is how it always goes. I'm just going to go ahead and always do kind of a 1, 2, 3 approach to these buckets here. Because really the first 3 buckets for last week, recent form, strokes gained, or any bucket that I talk about is the right way to go about it. There's one last thing I want to talk about before we get in the optimizer. When it comes to, or maybe the thought just flew to my mind. I want to say it was something to do with buckets, but perhaps it isn't. Oh, yes, we're going to tie it back with the bucket system. So again, I showed this summary in the preview video. Basically what you see on the screen, you know, don't get frightened. Don't get confused by what you see. I'm always looking at top 10 finishes. So that is what the buckets are. The totals that you see here are how many times that bucket, so this range, this is a finishing range. You know, 80 plus just means missed cuts or withdraws. Obviously, did not plays mean exactly what it is, but these are just finishing position ranges. So this is a total of how many golfers finish inside the top 10 from 2013 to 2020 in each of their ranges. And then from there, I rank them. So what it looks like, bucket is last week. Rank 1 means they did not play. We had 41 instances of that happening from 2013 to 2020. What you see in the min max here is this min column means this is the absolute least amount of times it's happened in any 1 year. So that means going back to 2013, we've seen at least 4 golfers from this bucket inside the top 10 every single year. So that's the minimum, 4. We haven't seen anything less than that, which should give you more confidence when it comes to playing golfers from that bucket. And you can do that with each of these buckets here. So obviously when you look at last week and you go over, that shows you. Now this is really interesting too. Average per year buckets within these ranges. We typically have 8 golfers who are within that, who are a last week bucket 3, or a different way to say that is we usually have 8 golfers who had a last week finishing score between 1 and 20. This year we only have 2. So when it comes to this confidence, you know, like 16.07% of golfers within that finishing range any given year finish inside the top 10. 16% of 2 is a decimal point. Like it's not a very good number. So the odds of this finishing inside the top 10, probably not very good. And obviously if we look at top 5 frequencies, which I provide here, you know, that drops to 7.14%. So still not very good, but hey, 1 year there was 2 that did show up inside the top 5, which is really good. And then cuts made are just basically anyone who was able to escape the pods. So that's how I kind of do the cut made percentage. So you can see your highest cut made percentage out of any of these really was your last week bucket 6 golfers and your recent form bucket 1 golfers. So take that with whatever, however you want. But primarily the best way to say it, the lower the score, the better. You probably want to anchor most of your golfers around these buckets, or you want to fill in your lineups with these guys. Because if your favorite golfer is a last week 3, well, you know, the minimum is 4 for how many, you know, did not play the week before in any given tournament or any given year of this tournament. You might as well do the same for this one. And if anything, maybe go 1 less. I mean, that's kind of my rule of thumb. So here are all your bucket scores for last week through recent form. We didn't talk about last year or course history because we didn't have a tournament last year. And course history here is really difficult to do with kind of the weird finishing places that come with, you know, it just doesn't, it's not helpful. So that's why I didn't include course history. So that's basically the bucket system all in a cinch. I know I can't think of a different word, but let's go ahead and get into the optimizer, and we're going to be living here for the remainder of the time. Now, I want to provide something. I'm going to try to also do a little advertisement here. So obviously it's going to still help you out, but I'm going to try to, say something that I can cut up and then throw into a different video. So just if it sounds, sales pitchy, that's because that's what it is. So reason why this optimizer is good to use is because you're not going to select more. It's never going to select more than 2 golfers from a quadrant. And why is that important? Well, obviously, I'm sure you've heard this throughout the industry. You never want to select more than 2 guys from one quadrant. In fact, how you want to be looking at creating your lineups right away is you want to select 1 guy from one quadrant, go to the next quadrant, select 1 guy from there, and do that for each 4 of those. So when you get to the semifinals, you have 1 golfer in each quadrant. Makes sense, right? Well, those guys obviously came from somewhere within the tournament. Obviously, I've kind of highlighted them there. There are 4 open positions, and in order to get the optimal lineup, you want to grab a golfer from either of those quadrants. So it means you're going to select at least 2 golfers from 2 quadrants, two separate quadrants. So that is why the optimizer has this set max as 2, meaning it's never going to select more than 2 guys from this quadrant. Now, the same thing goes with groups. You can't just set it to quadrants, because if you were to do that, chances are you might get a Dustin Johnson and a Kevin Na in one group or in one of your lineups. Or maybe not so much Dustin Johnson, Kevin Na. Maybe you put DJ and Sung Jae together. That's not a good way to create a lineup, because they're going to match up right here. And one of these guys is going to win. Let's call it DJ. DJ's going to go here. Sung Jae's tournament's over. So you're not going to accrue more points. You want to get the most holes, the most matches out of your golfers. So in order to do that, you need to select someone from the adjacent side of the quadrant. The best way I did this was just combine, because this is one pod, this is another pod. The best way to do is just combine them into a group. So this is group 1. And I know that they're named differently on different brackets, but for my bracket, for creating with this optimizer, super easy to go with this. This is group 1. So when we look at the optimizer, we have those groups set to 1. That is the max, set to 1. So therefore, it's never going to select more than 1 guy from this group. And in fact, if I were to go ahead and do that, I'm hoping this is going to work. So if I select DJ and look at another guy, again, Sung Jae is the guy that we're looking for. So sure, let's run the optimizer. I hope it gives us an error out code, because it shouldn't select more than 2. We'll see if it does. There we go, perfect. So obviously it just said, oh, this doesn't work. The rules are set up to not allow this. So obviously when you're using this optimizer, if you want it, that when you see this, that means something is wrong within the optimizer. Not in the optimizer, in your presets. So obviously I set Sung Jae in to a Y. Now if I were to run this optimizer, now that I got rid of Sung Jae, it should provide me a lineup without any error. And there it did. Not a terrible lineup either. DJ, Rory, that's pretty nice. I like this lineup. I'm gonna go ahead and save it. Believe it or not, I was actually running this. Actually, let me finish up. So that is why this optimizer is great, is you're never going to select, it's always going to run lineups optimally for selecting tournaments. All you have to, for lineups, all you have to do is select your favorite guys. So like when you go to the bracket and say you do like DJ and say, you know what, you really like Patrick Cantlay, go ahead to the optimizer and select Patrick Cantlay as your anchor spots. And then you get to run this 10 times, 50 times, 90 times to see who it's going to select. So I have DJ and Cantlay, and now it's selected a perfectly good combination of players that fit my criteria. you can see what it selects, what the optimizer selected. So it selected a guy from group 1. That's obviously Dustin. Group 2, it selected somebody. Unfortunately, I can't see. I should have coded that, but one guy from group 4, one guy from group 5, one guy from group 6, and one guy from group 7. And you can see also the quadrants that it selected: 2 from quadrant 1, 2 for quadrant 3, 1 for quadrant 2, and 1 for quadrant 4. Probably should have used a different word than quadrant. Maybe region would have been better. But either way, you guys understand how it's done. That's why I love this thing. I mean, it was a light bulb moment when someone brought it up to me like, hey, are you going to have an optimizer for the match play? I'm like, I think I can actually do this. And it works swimmingly, works wonderful. So you should get this optimizer. All right. That was my sales pitch. And it was also informative. So hopefully it helped you guys understand how it's used. But if you do come into an issue, so you can see all of the ownerships. This is my max exposure. I have maximum ownership. For me, how I always look at that is I don't want more than 25%. So that's my max ownership I'm setting for that golfer. If this is too small, you're going to run into those NA issues. So if I were to put, I mean, let's just go 25 and then 0 for everybody else. The optimizer, what it's going to do is it's going to double check that and go, yeah, we can't run a lineup because you have 0% with everybody. I guess not. I wonder why it's actively ignoring that. Okay. Well, I'm glad I already did my sales pitch, so I don't have to talk about this, but that should not happen that way. Why? Maximum ownership. Oh, guys, come on. So how I have it set is if this is greater than that, it won't select it. So obviously these 0% aren't actually greater than 0%, so that's why it's selecting it. So if you were actually to create 100 lineups, as you go through each one of these and you save them, you're going to get to a moment where the optimizer cannot run. And basically all I'm trying to say is it's been set up too strict and you have to open it up a little bit. I was also running this before, and I mean, so for me, I wouldn't say it was it wasn't really that embarrassing, but it was like, I can't believe I didn't see this. I had 2 set up down here under 10K and above. So if I go ahead and run this, I'm hoping it's going to error out. And if it doesn't, if I save, run again, save, run again, it should error out. I think it has, 4 more lineups? There we go, perfect. And that was primarily because I had this set to 2, and I didn't even see that. Like, I honestly did not know that that's how it was. But because of all the other constraints we have set up, when it's like, we can't select another 10K golfer because it just doesn't work out that way. So yeah, that's how it got fixed. So if you are using this optimizer and you do see those NAs show up, it's because whatever you have set in here is too strict. And really, you don't want this max to ever be more than 6 because we're only selecting 6 golfers. So any of these stats are 6. What I like to do is just go ahead and copy and then select all of these ranges and then right click on the next, the next cell next to it. Wow, that's a lot of X's. And just put values only. That way it'll go 6. If you don't do that and you go down, I mean, this is an aesthetic thing for me. It just removes the borderlines, and I don't I'm not one that likes to see that. So, but you can go ahead and mess around with this to see what your favorite presets are. Now, obviously, we did talk about strokes gained buckets. We didn't see more than 1 strokes gained 6 or 5 inside the top 10. I don't want the optimizer selecting more than that. And really, we didn't see that many 4s either. I'm actually going to open this up a little bit more. So I'm going to put, I'll put 4. We'll go 4, 4, 4. And actually, I'm going to keep this to 3. And that should be fine. But if I ever come into issues where the optimizer won't run, and by the way, if you do click run and save 50 lineups, it will run and save 50 lineups in this lineups page here. This is just a wonderful way for you to also go and import this. Copy this over to a CSV sheet to mass import. That's what this page is perfectly set to do. Every time you hit save, it's just going to go there. So if I can continuously hit, you can also see the lineups are actually updating over and over and over again, and all my lineups are being saved here. Now, you can also, if you don't like how that all showed up, just hit delete all. All your lineups become deleted, and you look, they're all deleted. But yeah, run 90, run 50, run 10. It is always my advice to just run 10 at your first time. Because if you do run into issues where your presets were, or your conditionals were too strict, it's better to find that out sooner rather than later, because you don't want, 80 of your lineups to be NA, because obviously it's going to take some time for this to run. I'm not going to select 10 because it doesn't take that long. It'll go through 10 lineups in probably 20, 30 seconds. 20, 30 seconds in our time is going to be way too long. So I'm not going to hit 10 lineups, but if you did that, you're going to find 10 lineups shown right here. So again, this is all customizable. You can change this metric to whatever you want. If for whatever reason you don't like how it is, I have saved the metrics to another field. Just hit SweetSpot defaults and it will change the metric back to what it was before. It also changed the ownership to what I had it as well. If you want to go ahead and change your ownerships, like if you really like DJ and you want them in at least 50%, not at least, if you want them at most 50% of your lineups, go ahead and hit 50. The minimum ownership, if you want to do that too and make sure the optimizer selects it in 25%, go ahead and do it. My only recommendation is never set this. All of the percentages, they should never total over 100. It should always be to 100. But if you have FOMO on some players, go ahead and put 1. Like maybe if you're afraid that the optimizer won't select Jordan Spieth, make sure it's at 1. Or if you want at least 10% Jordan Spieth, go ahead and hit 10. And I think, actually, I don't know if this is going to help, because is Spieth and Cantlay in the same? Okay, no. So it recognized that you had 10% set for Jordan Spieth. It went ahead and selected Jordan Spieth. Now, if I go ahead and put Jon Rahm at, say, 1%, let me go ahead and get rid of Cantlay and run the optimizer. It's actually going to select Rahm before it selects Jordan, because he's ahead of Jordan on this leaderboard. Or perhaps I'm wrong. Oh, I think it's because DJ is locked. That's why. So it's kind of intuitive a little bit. It looks at who you've already set as your lock, and it ignores it if it says, you have DJ at 11.5 locked in. Do you really want Jon Rahm locked in at 10.7? Or I mean, not so much 10.7, but do you want me to select a golfer, or you want me to select Jon Rahm at 10.7 and really leave you with nothing else? That's pretty much what it's doing. So it's ignoring. It ignores based off of certain price thresholds. So I think if Jordan Spieth is there and I have a Y here and a Y here, it shouldn't pick Jordan Spieth. And it should also not pick Jon Rahm, I think. Let's just double check. So it did pick Jordan Spieth because it could, which is fine. That's okay. I just don't remember what the rules are. But if you're noticing that it's not selecting a golfer that you have a minimum ownership set to, it's because there are rules that are set up just to safeguard you. If you want Jordan Spieth in your lineup, go ahead and click that Y and then run Optimizer. And there we go. We have the most optimal Jordan Spieth lineup. It includes Rory McIlroy, Sergio, Joaquin Niemann, Ryan Palmer, Kevin Streelman. You can always eyeball this. So when you go to your bracket and you look, if you didn't like somebody, let's say Streelman at $6,300. Like, I don't want to play Streelman. Like, why would it select Streelman? Streelman's right here at $63. We have $700 we can work with. We can either select Streelman here. I suppose we can't select anybody else that's, in here. In this group, that is. So we'd have to go somewhere else. So what group is open that we haven't selected from? So we don't want a quadrant 2. We have to select from, so that was 1 from quadrant 1. We do want a golfer from, so now we have to flip out 2 if we didn't want Streelman. But you know what we can do to make this way easier? And this is why I love this. Again, I mean, I kind of joked about this before, but you don't have to do the little head thing. If I go and find Streelman and say, no, I don't want Streelman in this lineup, I can go ahead and hit no. And this way, it's now going to recalculate a better optimal lineup or a different optimal lineup that is not going to include Streelman. So there we go. Instead of Streelman and instead of McIlroy, now we have Finau in there. I think McIlroy was chosen before. So it's a whole different lineup at 49,300. And you can see all of the group or the quadrants, the groups that were chosen, all that kind of stuff. So it's perfect. Okay. Maybe this should have been done at the end of the video, but I think this is great because I definitely want to show you guys how this optimizer works, at least for this match play. And really, this is how this optimizer works every single week. I always provide it as a giveaway for those of my loyal watchers and viewers, supporters of the show. Let's go ahead and strategize here, right? That's kind of what this video is supposed to be about. So you need conviction plays. To me, you have to look at the groups themselves and try to determine what makes sense to you. Let me scroll in just a little bit. Yeah, we'll go here. What makes sense to you? Obviously, this has been deemed the group of death or something like that because these 3 golfers that are paired with JT in this pod all have winning match play records. Like, they have really good match play records, by the way. Most of them are over 60% when it comes to their win rate. So, and JT is like at 57 or 56. I think he might have the lowest win percentage when it comes to match play events. So he's in a bad group altogether. If your convictions are still telling you JT is going to win, all the more power to you. Like that's perfectly fine. For me, it gives me doubt. Like, it gives me caution. Like, it gives a lot of people caution that JT probably isn't a great choice. Now, again, you want to select one guy from this group, not just from this pod, but from this group. If there's another guy you like, I really like Jordan Spieth. A lot of people do because this is match play. You don't have to worry about a double bogey or a triple bogey. So if you really like Jordan Spieth out of a group like this one, go ahead and select him. 9,300. He's the 49th ranked player, or seeded player, I should say, in this tournament. You can go ahead and select him, and that kind of makes it easier from here because if you do miss out on one of these guys, it's not that big of a deal. By the way, you don't have to fill out a bracket to make a DraftKings lineup. For you, it's Jordan Spieth. You're selecting Jordan Spieth. You don't have to worry about anyone here. So we can also skip this bracket or this group right here for now. We don't have to come here yet. But let's say we go back to quadrant 1 and we're trying to figure out, I guess between this group or this group, who do we want to anchor our quadrant 1 lineups with? Well, Sergio has a really good track record. I like him in this group to win. I mean, the only other person I think he really has competition against is Tyrrell Hatton. And then he has to face off against any of these guys. And that's Webb or Paul Casey. To me, in my opinion. Obviously, any of these guys can catch fire, but if I'm thinking Sergio can win this group, if he has to play against a Gooch or a Mac Hughes, I'm okay with that. So Sergio would be my pick here. Again, you have to go with your convictions. To me, out of this group, the best guy is Sergio. If I'm looking out of this group, the best guy is Dustin Johnson. But if you're going to lineup, craft or theory craft when it comes to lineups, we already have one at 93. We already have one at 83. Putting someone with 11.5 is going to be really difficult to create a lineup. So just with that on its own, maybe we don't like DJ. And in fact, we don't have to pick anyone here yet. Let's actually go to a different quadrant. So if we go to quadrant 3, you can see this is one group and this is another group. Out of the groups, which ones do we find the most difficult? These are 3 good golfers that I find difficult to choose between. I like Cam Smith. I don't mind Lonto Griffin or Ian Poulter, but to me, I think the clear winner is Rory, despite his swing troubles. Like, a really good point I heard is, if he does have one bad swing, or let's say he has 3 bad swings in a round, which would probably have made him have a double bogey in a stroke play event and get him out of the cut or get him out of contention, that doesn't matter here. Rory is so talented, and not a lot of people are going to be playing Rory. I really like Rory, but I also know I just picked someone at 8,300 and I picked someone at 9,300. Fitting in Rory is going to be okay. So if I were to do that, you know what I can do from here? Now that I've kind of did that in my mind, I can go to the optimizer and go ahead and just lock those guys in. So we want Rory, we want Jordan, and we want Sergio. So the heavy hitting is already done for us. I can hit run optimize, and this thing is going to create me a lineup based off of all the conditionals that we set, and it's going to build it optimally for us. So it went ahead and selected Joaquin Niemann, Ryan Palmer, and Kevin Streelman, which is kind of interesting because Ryan Palmer is right here in this bracket with Jon Rahm. So basically, the optimizer is selecting Palmer to get to the quarterfinals against Rory, which Rory would then end up winning. At least that's what we think is going to happen. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, easily could be Sebastian Munoz, if it's not Jon Rahm, but that's what the optimizer does. Now let's say we don't like Rory. Let's switch him out with Jon Rahm. Because obviously Jon Rahm is in that same quadrant. Why not? Let's go ahead and run the optimizer and see what it pulls out. I think this optimizer is just going to always select Kevin Streelman because of his price and the metric that comes with him. He's just probably the best value at 63. But this isn't a bad lineup. Again, it's using Joaquin Niemann and Streelman. Let's go ahead and challenge the optimizer in not picking Joaquin Niemann. Let's see who it comes up with now. And again, this is this is why I love this optimizer, because you get to decide who you like and who you don't. So it switched out Joaquin with Hideki Matsuyama, basically. And I think another guy. I wasn't paying attention. But you know what? Kevin Streelman, you're showing up way too many times. And so one other way we can do this, instead of clicking no, what I can do is just give him a number. Let's give him the same number as, I want to be respectful. Let's go ahead and just give him the same number as Eric Van Rooyen. That's fine. And run that optimizer. Now, I mean, his points were pretty high. It actually might select Sebastian Munoz if I'm looking at it, because 545 is pretty good. Actually, it wouldn't select Sebastian, right? Because he's in the same quadrant, the same group as Jon Rahm. So instead it went with Ian Poulter. And again, you can see what it selected. Interesting. I forgot we want one of each. I forgot to put that. So that's a good warning for you guys. Make sure the minimum is set to 1. It's the only way to build optimal lineups. There we go. Perfect. So if I did send that to you and it's at 0 for whatever reason, make sure it's at 1. But yeah, that's wonderful. I did it. Oh, the hard reset. I think when I hit the hard reset, the first time around when I was creating this video, it must have, that's not good. I don't want that to happen. I don't think there's a way to change it. So just be cognizant of it. Make sure this is always set to 1. But anyways, that is what's wonderful about this optimizer. You don't have to think yourself through every single play, I mean, I'm still going to put no to Rosner. I'm just I'm not going to play Rosner. But you don't have to think your way all the way through a bracket. Just look at your groups and determine who you think is going to come out of this group. Who has the best opportunity to get to the quarterfinals from each of these groups. And then just anchor your lineups around those guys. For me, I mean, I think what I would want to do is make sure that these max numbers match up with what these numbers are. So last week, my max numbers for top 10 finishes are like this. If I go ahead and actually what I need to do is do this all individually, which is going to be silly because like 13 isn't a number you would typically see. So 4 is fine. Actually, I'm not going to copy and paste. I'm just going to eyeball it and then just put in the numbers. So last week 3 is 3, last week 4 is 3, last week 5 is 3, and then last week 6 is 2. Recent form 1 is 9, which is silly. We don't need to put 9. Oh, perfect. The validation says you cannot do that, so perfect. Actually, you know what? I copied over that. That shouldn't be. Yeah, we'll just put it at 6. If it's over 6, keep it at 6. So recent form 1 was 9. Recent form 2 is 9, so that's gonna be 6. Recent form is for 3 is 4 for our max. Recent form 4 is 3, and then 2, 1. Perfect. So basically, what I did was went over these numbers here. I'm gonna go ahead and just copy and paste that over here. I'm sure you guys know what this is. So this is your salary. This would be your strokes gained. These are the numbers that I want to change. There you go. So now when the SweetSpot defaults change, it's just going to change these numbers here to what it was or what I just changed it to. So perfect. That's exactly how I want it to be. Like I said, building lineups is going to be awesome. I can go ahead and, I mean, my ownerships, I'm going to have to change this because this is way too small. I like to start small and then add, you know, numbers to whatever. And also what my strategy is when creating lineups is I want to select one guy and pair him up with another. So like, let's say DJ and Cantlay are my options I'm pairing together. I'm just going to go ahead and just mark in this. I mean, you're more than welcome to mark this up however you want. This is going to be my group 1. So I'm going to anchor 30 of my lineups with DJ and Cantlay. And again, I can do that with any of these guys. And then when I go ahead and create lineups, I just go like this. Just hit Y. You know, run it 10 times, 3 times each. And to me, that's easy because if there is an error somewhere in there, I can go ahead and change. I wonder if there's just a perfect preset of numbers that you should have. I wonder if it's like 30% down. And I think I said preset. I didn't mean to say preset, but like what this maximum ownership should be in order to not have an error. Because there's only 64 golfers in this field, and if we're building something like 100 lineups, we're going to have to definitely build accordingly. Yeah, I think so. I think that's fine. And then for here, I think we have to put 10. Maybe we have to put more. Yeah, I guess 15 is probably what the number is going to be for me. 15 down to here, and then I'm going to put 10 for the rest. So, I mean, this is what you can do. You can go ahead and set out your own presets for max ownership, minimum ownership, that kind of stuff. Don't touch this. Just leave it. It's a formula. It's based off of all your saved lineups. You can go ahead and change the metric in here. If you want to come back to any of my metrics, obviously hit the SweetSpot defaults. That's perfect. I wouldn't change anything with salary because why would you? Well, actually, never mind. I can turn that back. If you're doing FanDuel lineups, you can go ahead and switch these salaries for these players. The strokes gained buckets, I would not touch. I definitely would not touch anything in here because that is based off of the brackets. For this though, if you don't care for these numbers and you want to set them to whatever, then I would highly recommend you set all these to 6 because it is looking at those numbers. For me, the important thing is really just finding golfers to anchor your lineups around. If you have convictions to play, definitely go ahead and hit your Ys for these. I guess for those not using optimizers, that's also my advice to you anyways, is if you have convictions, go with them. And I think this is a perfect time to do, you know, like high ownership on certain combos of players. I think it will go a long way. It will help you out quite a bit. So I think that's my last piece of advice that I want to give. And I think we're going to leave it there. If you want this optimizer, all you have to do is like the video, comment in the comment section, make sure you're subscribed to this channel, and then reach out to me through email, and I will send it to you right away. I'm going to send you the exact copy that I just went over, so you're going to have it as soon as you send me an email. I plan to be awake for the next 3 hours, so you know, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I will definitely try to get you this optimizer as quick as possible. If you are trying to reach out to me after, say, 1 a.m. Central Standard Time, I'm probably going to be asleep. So I'd say, unfortunately, you can't get it. I might, if you still want it, go ahead, put that in your email. I'll definitely send it to you. But yeah, hopefully it all works out, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this strategy video. My favorite plays, really, I do like Dustin Johnson a lot. I also really like Rory. Like, those are two of my guys that I'm probably going to go 30% in on. So I'm going to anchor, you know, one of my other lineups with Rory and try to find someone I'm going to pair him up with. It might be Sergio. And just go, you know, 30% that way. Or maybe I do 10% with Sergio, 10% with another guy, 10% with another guy, but still have 30% with Rory. I might do something like that this week. That probably makes more sense. That way I can, you know, cover all my bases, basically. I'm not one of those like to go all in on a certain lineup, especially something like this. It's very, very volatile. So I'm going to leave it at that. Again, optimizers are there for you. Let's win some money this week. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the review video after the tournament is over. All right, bye.